Hey everybody. I think this one we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. This is where I should have made a tinfoil hat for this one. But this is everything I'm leading to. This is why I'm trying to get people to think about different perspectives, different point of views. Um, I did a piece of writing back in December. I think it was around the 21st, might have been the 23rd. I know it was just before Christmas. Um, And in that morning, I had been in an online discussion with some film critic friends of mine. Um, and part of the discussion, excuse me, um, the mention of propaganda came up. And it struck me that we really don't give that word the weight that it deserves. Um, it is a very real thing, and it is a warning sign of something else. Um, and in that discussion, that occurred to me because, again, since I've had my experiences, I've always had, I was diagnosed ADHD, and I do believe I have a touch of autism, but I was never diagnosed with that. Um, because the way my brain functions, I make associations that most people don't unless it's pointed out to them, or I can recognize certain patterns when I stop and think about things. And I'm getting to the video where I tell that story because I used to be just like everybody else, you know, happily oblivious. But anyway, before I ramble on too much, I'm just going to read this off. I hate reading off a script, but otherwise I'll get distracted. So I'm going to read to you the bit that I wrote that day. How many times throughout history has the following pattern occurred? You get a nation of people that are unhappy with the ruling class and they're starting to voice their concerns. Uh, you get a charismatic individual or group that appears and makes a semi logical argument, although it's flawed really when you look deeper into it. They make a point that the reason the current society is suffering is because of a specific group. You know, a certain demographic. They're kind of saying, "Hey, I think are the ones that are causing all the problem." You know, and then there's a propaganda campaign that dehumanizes said group. Mm-hmm. And the public are swayed to agree with the charismatic individual's viewpoint. Like, hey, everything will be good. Everybody will be happy just as soon as we get these folks in line. You know, and then it leads to this dark moment in history where humanity turns on itself, and instead of relieving any suffering, they just shift it. It doesn't go away, it just changes direction. I can count easily off the top of my head at least 3 times this has happened in the last 100 years. Anyway, I'm getting off. All right, back to reading. It should sound very familiar because it's happened many times throughout history. Yeah, that's where I say what I just said about I can see it. Before someone makes a point, you know, that's one particular group that used that tactic, I'd invite you to research that history a little more deeply. You know, I know one of the big debates is everybody wants to blame one certain group for the origin of certain ailments, but I mean, in history, it's hard to. It all falls down onto what you trust because it's true what they say. History is written by the victors, and in any instance, there's always 3 points of view involved: side A, side B, and then the outside observer that doesn't have a stake on either claim. And that's seldom what we really get. But you know what really terrifies me? It's not the fact that this cycle just continues to be attempted. what really keeps me up at night is the fact that it continues to succeed. And we're walking right into it. Why do you think our tensions are high and everybody's arguing with each other and just frustrated with each other? Because it's working. It's happening again right now in our society, and people either don't realize it or they just don't care. It's scary. It boggles my mind. Mm. Then I go on to say in my thing, I've commented before on this and a few other points, and this is some of the things that have been in my messaging. This is things I need people to understand. If you think, if you give me just a moment of your thought and you start to see what I'm saying about the whole propaganda and society being pushed to start thinking a certain way, there's ways to stop it. And I'm listing here some points. And again, these are always in my messages in these videos that I make and what I write. The answer to oppression is not more oppression. The solution to oppression is to do away with it entirely, applying equal freedom to everyone. No special rules for nobody. I know a lot of people that don't sit well with them, but if you want true freedom, true equality, that's how it is. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. We're even all the way across. That's the only way that's going to work. My next point. Evil is singular. It is not inherent in any group, contrary to popular belief. The evil ones are these people that step up and take advantage and start. There's a reason they call them triggers, folks, because they turn you into a bullet. They weaponized us. They've got us on each other. But these, puppet masters, they're the ones that are evil, not the people they claim to represent. All right, and I really want you to think about this logically. All right, what is more probable? That someone is using propaganda, and again, look up, it is psychological, psychological warfare is basically what it is. You can look it up. It's been used. It's well documented. You can't really talk about it, though, because they make sure that you can't talk about a certain point in history that it's well known. Consider that. But anyway, my point. Do you really think it's probable that one set of people based solely on a demographic, be it the color of their skin, their gender, their, political, whatever, based on one point, that everyone in that group is inherently evil because they're part of that group? Do you really believe that that is probable? Or do you think it's more probable that, again, they're using these tactics and getting people subliminally to think that way? I wrote this whole thing. I developed this process years ago, and I didn't realize what I was doing when I did it until recently when I fixed it. But there's a way to find out what's indoctrination in your head and what's really your valid thoughts. There's a way to do it, and I shared the link the other day, and I'll share it again on the bottom here because I want everybody to check it out. Third point, easy. Again, if you give credence to what I'm saying, easiest way to stop it, follow this advice. Treat others how you want to be treated, not how they have treated you, either in reality or through a false perception, which is what these influencers use. They warp your perception. They're dastardly. They hide these messages inside of things you want to hear, and it twists. I'm going to do a whole series on that where I point that out. It'll blow your mind. You're not going to solve the problem of hate with more hate. Hatred is born from emotion. So the solution should thereby be based on logic if we want a lasting result. There's a place for an emotional basis, and a place for a logical basis. The trick is to identify which is which. And again, I point out, they created this generation. Like, I know not many people read my posts or watch my videos because I'm long-winded. Everybody has a short attention span. Gee, I wonder why that is. Because again, if you realistically believe that people are inherently evil because of a characteristic that they had no control over by birth, I invite you to reconsider that logic, because, a lot of people say, oh, well, you're being this ist or you're being that phobe. Turn that around. Look the other direction of it. You're using the same tactics against each other in this whole social war. It's not how we're going to get rid of it. A good indicator that what I'm saying is true, that, propaganda is being used and, society is starting to shift. A good indicator that is occurring is a widespread double standard. Meaning it's okay for all of a particular group to do something, but not another. Again, that's why I go back to my earlier statement. It only works if it's a level playing field, if everybody has the same rights as everybody else with no special exceptions. Either it's right for everyone to do it, or it's not right for anyone to do it. Period. It does not get any simpler than that. That's how we get true equality and freedom. And again, my next point, taking that further, you can spark hatred by initiating emotion. And again, why do you think we call them triggers? Because they trigger your emotions and they make you go into that place, that subliminal place that they've already been putting in front of your brain, and it sends you there and you're just seething with anger. That's how it works. It requires logic to show the flaw in the thinking that generated the emotional response that turned into hatred. And again, I make the point, like, isn't it funny how everyone has short attention spans now? That's by design. There's been a lot of social engineering going on over the last few years. But good news. We're almost done, I promise. I got some good news. We have a golden opportunity right now to end this cycle. And we're wasting it. We're letting them win by doing all this arguing, and everybody's screaming, but nobody's listening. Everybody says this has to change, but nobody's giving, fair and equal solutions to the problems. Unfortunately, empathy is being driven out of humanity through indoctrination and failing systems. Everything. I'll tell you the story, but how I started to notice this stuff. Again, part of it's that pattern recognition that goes on in my head, that game of associations. Unfortunately, morality can be subjective. However, I would hope that we could all agree anything that intentionally causes suffering in another individual is evil, no matter the excuse you want to slap on it. If your intent is for somebody to be in some kind of pain, even if not physical, in mental pain, then that is just evil. That's the heart and soul of it. All right? I want you to consider this. Step out of the view that's been fed to you for a while and create one of your own. Make sure that your thoughts are genuinely your thoughts. And again, I will put the link in here. I have a system, but it takes a lot of work. But you can do it. I've done it on myself. And by the way, it's never ending. Because they are slick. and it's in there deep. We got to face it. We're being played. And part of the way they're winning is to feed the ego. Look, everybody has, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a widespread thing of people with narcissistic tendencies right now. Everybody focused on the self, like, oh, look at me, and oh, I'm important because of who I am, They're inflating egos, and that's how they're winning, because if you're focused on yourself, you're not worrying about how it's affecting everybody else. And that's how they blindside you. And you notice here, I give a lot of descriptions of details of how it works, but I'm not pointing any actual fingers. Like, I'm not saying specifically how they are. Like, it's left versus right, white versus black, men versus women, And there's a reason for that. Because of just that. It's in all these directions at once. And what scares me is I think it's leading to these consequences that are going to be far more horrific than anything previously seen in history. Because they've got us so riled up, and nobody is going to trust anybody. Everybody's going to be swinging at each other. This is going to get ugly. But we can stop it. And it's just as simple as making a choice. Not on my watch. That's it. That's all you got to do. That and spread awareness. Tell everybody else, make the same choice. Not on my watch. Think about those horrific moments in history that have happened. Really think about it. Because that's what's coming. That's where we're at. And all you got to do is open your eyes. I don't need to get you to think how I'm thinking. I just need you to get thinking for yourself and really think about it. And again, I'm going to do another series where I point out specific ones, try and give a jump start. And you'll start seeing it on your own. Once you see the first few, you will see it on your own. But that's where we're at, folks. That's why I'm doing what I do. I see this future, I will not say is imminent, because it's not. We're dangerously close. I do feel a sense of urgency in this. And again, I know I won't be taken seriously because I hit every demographic that's, on the downswing of all this stuff. Nobody cares what I think. Nobody cares what I have to say. But hopefully, I plant a seed somewhere. Hopefully something I said sticks with somebody. That's the idea. And I'm going to keep doing what I do until one or the other happens. All right, folks. So, anyone took the time, thank you. I appreciate you for listening to my rant. Please, 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 I beg of you, don't take my word for it. Just look into a few things yourself. It really doesn't take that much. I swear. It just takes an open mind and a willingness to ask questions outside of the norm. That's it. It is very easy for us to undo what has been done, and that's what terrifies them. Why do you think the billionaires are starting to build bunkers? Because they know that there are people like me who are starting to see these signs and starting to warn everybody. And apparently, I guess enough are listening that they're getting nervous. But if we, stop the plans in motion, they are going to go full scorched earth. This is not going to be pretty. Whether we get it right or we get it wrong, it is not going to be pretty. I don't want to sit here and give anybody false promises. But it is what it is. You just got to decide, which side do you want to be on? Do you want chaos? Or do you want peace? Simple choice. Start making it. Think about it.